على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. So this topic, mental health, is, as you say, a major concern, especially post-COVID. I will start out with a verse of the Quran. In Surah Ar-Rahman, Allah says, وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ أَلَّا تَطْغَوْا فِي الْمِيزَانِ وَأَقِيمُوا الْوَزْنَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تُخْسِرُوا الْمِيزَانَ. That Allah has raised up the heavens. وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ. He has raised up these heavens and imposed or set down the balance, mizan, that in order that you should not transgress within the balance, and establish weight with justice, and do not make deficient the balance. So this word mizan is repeated 3 consecutive times in these 3 consecutive verses. The last one is specifically about trading, giving just measure, but the first 2 verses are more general. Allah has set down the balance, and in order that you do not make deficient the balance, that is one translation. We could also translate it as in order that you do not transgress within the balance. So Islam is about balancing many things, right? We have to balance dunya with akhirah, with the world, with the hereafter. We have to balance between the self and the community and society. We have to strike the right balance between the soul and the body. We have to strike the right balance between the different parts of the Sharia, different parts of Islam. Right? So we don't, for example, we shouldn't be praying all day. Praying is important, but it is only one part of our lives. Similarly, we shouldn't fast excessively, but if we pray and fast and give charity and do the other things we are called upon to do in Islam, then if we do this in accordance with the example of the Prophet ﷺ, keeping in mind the instructions and the guidance and the lived example of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, then this will help us to find the right balance between the different parts of Islam. So Islam is like a balanced spiritual diet. We need to have all these things in there: prayer, fasting, charity, hajj for those who are capable of marriage, friendships. All of this is part of Islam, but each of these should be in the right proportion. And in this way, we achieve the balance. So there's balance within the Sharia as shown by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And if we look in nature, there is also a very delicate and precise balance. In both cases, in nature and in Islam, when the balance is upset, disorders will result. Just as if you, in this physical realm, if you do not eat a balanced diet, you might get sick. Similarly, if the spiritual balance is upset, then spiritual and mental and psychological disorders can result. But important, very important note, this is not the cause of every psychological or mental or spiritual, at least not the cause of every psychological or mental disorder. There's this tendency, even we find it among Islamic scholars sometimes, to attribute any mental disorder, depression, and so on, to attribute all that to weak iman. That, brother, you should just start praying regularly, recite Quran regularly, and you will be cured of your depression. No, that is not always enough. Similarly, there's another dangerous, potentially dangerous tendency in our communities, and that is to attribute all of these mental and psychological disorders to jinn and black magic, sihr. No, again, that is not the case. Yes, most of the Muslim theologians and scholars believe that sihr is a reality. Black magic is a reality. Demonic possession by a jinn, by the jinn kind of goes into the human body and causes various effects, whether physical or mental or psychological. Majority of Sunni theologians believe that that is a reality. But in spite of that, not every mental disorder is caused by jinn. And actually, there are the specialized raqis. Raqi is someone who does ruqya. What is ruqya? Ruqya is a form of, I guess we could say, exorcism, where the practitioner recites verses of Quran, names of Allah, du'as, and so on, in order to try to get this jinn, this demon, which is possessing this human being, to get that jinn out of the human. So the specialized raqis, if they really know their job, they will be able to tell you, right? They will recite Quran over the person, and then they will be able to tell you that, yes, this is caused by a jinn, and we need to have more of this ruqya. Or they will tell you, no, this is not a jinn problem. You should seek medical attention. You should see a doctor, or you should see a psychiatrist. Yeah, there is this topic of mental illness, insanity, and so on is discussed by scholars of usul al-fiqh as one of the awarid al-ahliya, one of the what's the word? It is on the tip of my tongue. One of the things which interferes with the legal capacity of a person, the accountability of a person. So one of these things which interferes with the person's moral accountability is insanity, junoon. That is one of the words which is often used for insanity by the scholars of usul. There are other words, but in a book of usul al-fiqh written, let's see, the author died 972 Hijri. Right now we are in 1446 Hijri. So this is how many 100 years ago? Someone help me with the math. 972 to 1446.
So about 500.
Yeah,
About
460.
500.
Yeah.
About 500 years ago, this was written. Amir Badshah, while discussing the Awarid al-Ahliya, and yes, I was reminded of the word I wanted, contingencies of capacity. He points out that there are two types of insanity. One is caused by an imbalance in the brain. SubhanAllah, this is surprisingly ahead of its time. Modern psychiatrists and so on tell us that many of these depression, schizophrenia and so on are caused by an imbalance of chemicals in the brain. So getting back to what Amir Badshah said, one type is caused by imbalance in the brain, and this can be treated, right? The implication is probably treated with medication. The second type of insanity is caused by demons. And for the second type, he said, spiritual remedies such as ruqya, reciting Quran, can be of assistance. So bottom line is that not every case of mental illness, mental disorder, not every case is caused by jinn, and not every case is due to weak iman. You can be a practicing good Muslim and still succumb to depression or other mental illness. We need to destigmatize mental illness. It is not it cannot always be attributed to weak iman. Nevertheless, getting back to what we're saying about balance, so if you strike the right balance, physical and spiritual, then you can minimize the chance of these disorders developing. But as we said, you might still develop a mental disorder, mental illness. But if you are closer to Allah, if your iman is stronger, then strong iman can help you to cope with this disorder. Okay, let's move on. So we were talking about COVID earlier in a different concept. We were talking about COVID earlier, and we said that mental health mental disorders have seen an uptick in the COVID era. But even actually before COVID, technology has been for a long time now wearing away the fabric of society and interpersonal communication that helped the society and interpersonal connections that helped our pre-technology ancestors to stay grounded. And I suspect, I didn't look up any statistics about this, but I suspect that there are higher incidences of people resorting to alcohol, drugs, and so on, maybe even pornography, as a result of this lack of or reduction in human, actual live human contact and connections. So if we balance our lives, balance the physical and the spiritual, balance the natural and the technological, then, as I was saying earlier, we can prevent some of these cases of mental illness, of people resorting to alcohol and drugs and so on. But we will not necessarily reduce these cases to zero, but at least if we can prevent some of these cases, that will be a victory. Okay. I want to move on to a verse in Surah An-Nur. I think Surah An-Nur. And we will see the connection. And then after that, I will mention a dua from the Prophet ﷺ, which, as you will see, is connected to mental health and mental well-being. And then I will conclude with some action items. Okay, I think I have gone on, been speaking for about 15 minutes so far. That's right, 15, 20. Okay, so inshallah, another 25 to 30 minutes, and then I will end and we'll open for questions and discussion.
Take your time, Imam. Don't worry about that. We have the hour.
Barakallahu fiqh. Okay, so the verse I will recite the Arabic first. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. يا أيها الذين آمنوا ليستأذنكم الذين ملكت أيمانكم والذين لم يبلغوا الحلم منكم 3 مرات من قبل صلاة الفجر وحين تضعون ثيابكم من الظهيرة ومن بعد صلاة العشاء 3 عورات لكم ليس عليكم ولا عليهم جناح بعدهن طوافون عليكم. Yeah, this is the key point I will be focused on. طوافون عليكم بعضكم على بعض كذلك يبين الله لكم الآيات والله عليم حكيم. I will read the Suheil international translation of this. O you who have believed, let those whom your right hands possess and those who have not yet reached puberty among you, let them ask permission of you before entering your room, in other words, at 3 times. Before the dawn prayer, before Fajr, and when you put aside your clothing for rest at noon, especially in hot climates. In the middle of the day, it is very hot, and especially for those in the times before there was air conditioning, and even now many people do not have access, so they tend to partially undress because of the heat, especially in the privacy of their own rooms. So similarly, before Fajr, people might be minimally dressed when they sleep. And the 3rd time, min ba'di salat al-isha, after the Isha night prayer, again, people in the privacy of their own rooms might be not appropriately attired. So this verse is telling us that let your children and your those whom your right hand possesses, in other words, slaves. We do not have slaves today, but similarly, if you have servants, servants and children should ask permission before entering your private room, your bedroom, for example, at least 3 times. ثلاث عورات لكم. These are 3 times of privacy for you. There's no blame upon you nor upon them beyond these 3 periods. Right? In other words, at any times other than these 3, that permission is not strictly required, but of course it still remains recommended and desirable, because of course you don't know, right? The person might be changing his clothes, he might be just have taken a shower, he might there might be other reasons why it's not appropriate for you to just enter someone's room. Yeah, but what about adults? We said servants and children. Actually, the next verse clarifies that this is also for adults. وَإِذَا بَلَغَ الْأَطْفَالُ مِنْكُمُ الْحُلُمَ فَلْيَسْتَأْذِنُوا. That when the children reach puberty, when they become adults, then they should also ask permission. what is the difference between children and adults in this context? One of the differences is that one of the things we can take from the way this is presented in these two separate verses of the Quran is that for children, they should be trained to respect privacy, because very young children do not have that concept. So that when they do reach adulthood, they will continue to respect this privacy and to ask permission before entering someone's private room. So yeah, this one of the lessons from this verse is about giving people their personal space and privacy. But after this, I said the key words which are relevant to our discussion of mental health. طوافون عليكم بعضكم على بعض. That you are continually circulating amongst yourselves, right? In other words, you have this human contact. طوافون عليكم. طواف is صيغة مبالغة. It is an emphatic form of the active participle, right? Not طائفين, but طواف, not طائفون, but طوافون. That constantly, over and over, you circulate amongst yourselves, you have this contact with one another in your homes. How true is that today? Often we find each member of the family having interaction with not the other humans in the family, but with their own phone or some other device. So even though we might be in the midst of family members, we might actually be alone. And the Prophet ﷺ warned us about solitude. There's two hadith on at least two hadith on this that I will mention right now. Both of them are narrated in the Musnad of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. The first one, لو علم الناس ما في الوحدة ما أعلموا ما سرى راكب بليل وحده. If people know what I know about solitude, about being alone, a rider would not ever ride alone at night. And another hadith from the same source, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن الوحدة أن يبيت الرجل وحده أو يسافر وحده. The Prophet ﷺ advised against being alone, advised against solitude, that a person sleep alone or travel alone. Yeah, if the person is sleeping alone, that means he's living alone. So it is not recommended to live alone. As bringing in the first hadith, if people know what I know, the Prophet ﷺ is saying about being alone, right? Then a rider would not ride alone at night. So there are potential harms which come from solitude. So أن يبيت الرجل وحده أو يسافر وحده. That, in other words, you should not sleep alone, which by implication, then you should not live alone if you have a choice. And yes, this is another prevalent phenomenon in the modern Western society, the age of the nuclear family, where if someone does not have a nuclear family, they are forced to live alone. Whereas in the past, and even to this day in many other countries, the people, even if they are not married, even if they even if they're not married, they will still not live alone. They will be living with an extended family. So, sociologists, psychologists, and others, researchers, medical researchers, have today confirmed the wisdom of what the Prophet ﷺ told us, and they identified loneliness as a massive risk factor for ill health, and this ill health could be both physiological and mental. And we could add a third element: spiritual ill health can also result from solitude. So in order to practice Islam fully, you need a community. The Prophet ﷺ said that that the believer who mingles with people and patiently puts up with their with the annoyances and so on, which result from that, that believer is better than the believer who does not mingle with people and cannot bear this slightest wrong or annoyance which is done to him by someone else. We have many things in Islam which are communal practices. Praying in Jama'ah, the 5 prayers is at least highly recommended. That this is according to, for example, Shafis and Malikis. According to Hanbalis and some Hanafis, it is more than that. It is a wajib or fard. And then once a week, Salat al-Jum'ah is, as we know, very important part of Islam. So yes, there's the spiritual dimension of Salat al-Jum'ah, but there's also a social dimension. You get to meet other people. You get to have that human contact. And those who are attending Salat al-Jum'ah might notice that, hold on, where's brother so-and-so? Where's sister so-and-so? They are normally here at Salat al-Jum'ah. They are not here today. Maybe it's something is wrong. Let me check up on them. So Salatul Jumu'ah has an important role in developing and fostering this sense of community. then there are other things like the Hajj and so on, but bottom line is there are many aspects of Islam which are communal and which help to keep people connected with other humans, and this in turn helps to keep people psychologically grounded. People are totally cut off from human contact. For example, in prisons, solitary confinement. We know that there's a big danger of mental disorders resulting from situations like that. Okay, but getting back to the verse, we said it is talking about privacy, giving people their space, but also Allah is telling us that we are mingling with one another. We are circulating within the house. We will need to have contact with each other, but we should do that while still giving people their space, their privacy. But there might be situations when you need to intrude on that privacy, right? For example, the family member's bedroom door is locked, but you can hear them calling out for help inside, or you can hear them crying. Something might be wrong, right? Maybe they did lock the door, not wanting to be disturbed, but actually maybe they locked the door for some other reason, and now something has happened and they are not able to open the door. You might make the judgment call to find a master key, or anyone know this trick? It works with locks which are not very good. You slip a credit card between the door and the door frame, and you use that to pry open the door. Yeah, so there are cases where you might need to intrude on people's privacy. The spatial privacy is one type of privacy, but also the privacy of the mind, right? You might need to parent might need to talk to their child if they suspect that the child is hiding something which is taking a toll on their physical or mental health. And in some cases, this might be urgent, right? Just as a, you might have an urgent physical, medical emergency. There can be urgent mental health emergencies. So sometimes you might choose to ask your child, your sibling, potentially even your parents, that, hey, what's going on? Do you want to talk? There's something on your mind. And sometimes it will be the person themselves who reaches out. And if this happens, then you need to listen. the person might reach out to a family member or even a friend. But regardless, if someone reaches out to you, then you need to listen. The Prophet ﷺ gave generous audience to a mentally challenged woman. There's there are hadiths about this in Sahih Muslim and elsewhere. In Sahih Muslim, it says, أن امرأة كان في عقلها شيء قالت يا رسول الله إن لي إليك حاجة. A woman with something wrong with her mind came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, I need to speak to you. The Prophet ﷺ, we know, was busy, very busy. He was the head of an entire community, the city of Medina. He was dealing with not only the internal challenges of Medina, but the external hostility from Quraysh and others. He could easily have said, you know what, woman, I'm busy, go and talk to Ali, go and talk to Abu Bakr. But he did not say that. He said, Ya Fulan, unduri أي السكك شئت حتى أقضي لك حاجة. That he told her that choose the place, any public place, because of course she was a woman and man should not be in seclusion with a woman. So choose any of the streets, any public place, in other words, and then you can fulfill your need to talk to me. كان في عقلها شيء. This woman had something wrong with her aql, her mind. We know people like this, when they talk, they are not necessarily even going to be coherent. And then, in addition to that, they tend to ramble. They can easily talk for half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, even longer, without it even making any sense. But in spite of this, the Prophet ﷺ likely knew what he was getting into, but in spite of that, he gave this mentally challenged woman time, as much time as he needed, as she needed. So yes, if someone wants to talk to you, give them time. SubhanAllah. Remember once I had gone to masjid. It was Kunji masjid when I was living in Kunji, and after the salah, a brother come to me and says, "Can I talk to you?" My first thought, SubhanAllah, may Allah forgive me, I thought that this is someone looking for money. I thought that, all right, he's going to explain to me his situation, his financial need, and then ask for money. And actually, of course, there are often people who do this, come to the masjid and when they are in need. And yes, these people have a right on the community, provided they're needed genuine, we should try to help them. So I guessed that this was a brother like that. But I didn't say anything. I said, all right, let's talk. And he started to talk. He started talking about his various things about whisperings of shaitan, and then he saw he said he started seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist or therapist, and then this person prescribed medication for him, and by now he had been talking for quite a while, and I think I probably had other things to attend to, so I asked him, I guess maybe he needed money to buy this medication, so I asked him, brother, do you need money? And he said, no, alhamdulillah, I don't need money. I just need to talk to someone. I guess his therapist was a non-Muslim. He said, I need to speak to Muslim. And I guess he particularly sought me out because I think I led the salah because the imam was not there for that prayer. So then he, I guess he there was a spiritual dimension to this because I guess this antipsychotic medication he was taking was actually having some effect on his spirituality. I won't go into more details right now, but yeah. But the point of this anecdote is that this brother did not need money. He needed time. He needed to talk to someone. So if someone like this comes to you, then give them time, especially if it is a family member or friend, then give them the time. And researchers have pointed out that disclosing one's concerns related to mental illness actually improves psychological well-being. But if it gets to be too much, again, it is all about balance. We have jobs, we have our own families. We cannot always give as much time to the person as needed. It can be draining. It can, if it is a friend, it can even end up being detrimental to friendship. Yeah, actually, my daughter a few weeks ago mentioned to me that there's a friend of hers that whenever she talks to this friend wants to talk about her own problems at length, right? Maybe 1 hour, even more, and this gets draining. My daughter said this is, she is starting to feel drained. So yes, you have to take care of yourself also, otherwise you would not be able to help anyone else if your own mental state is not good. So if the person needs more help than you can provide, or more time than you can provide, then refer them to someone else, a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, and if this friend or family member is Muslim, then try to find a Muslim therapist or mental health professional. So yes, again, I stress that mental illness is real. And in Islam, we respect specialization. لكل مقام مقال ولكل فن رجال. This is a saying, not hadith, but this is a wise saying, that there is a statement that is appropriate for each occasion, and for every field, there are specialists. So yes, these mental health professionals will be able to offer specialized therapy and advice, and in some cases, they might judge that medication will help. So yes, even for those cases where it might be determined that a jinn or black magic is involved, even then, I would advise the person to seek therapy and medication if needed, because you can pursue both forms of treatment, both the three forms of treatment: medication, therapy, and spiritual. The spiritual is the ruqya and so on. Dua, your own dua, and then the ruqya where someone else or you yourself recite these verses of the Quran over the afflicted person. Okay. I will briefly mention the dua. I guess there's a lot more that could be said in by way of explanation of the dua, but we don't have time for that, but maybe on some other occasion. But the dua is in Sahih al-Bukhari. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wa a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal-kasal wa a'udhu bika min al-jubni wal-bukhl وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ غَلَبَةِ الدَّيْنِ وَقَهْرِ الرِّجَالِ. That, oh Allah, I seek refuge with you from worry and grief. Worry, this is, ham is where you are worried for something which might happen in the future. And hazan, grief, is for something which has already happened in the past. So seek refuge from worry and grief, and then from incapacity or inability and laziness, right? Ajz is where you are not able to act, and kasal is where you are physically able, but you do not have the desire or motivation to act, which is very common in depression. And then the next two, so basically this hadith is, this dua is seeking refuge from 8 things. So we mentioned 4 so far. The next two is al-jubn wal-bukhl, cowardice and stinginess. And then غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال, being overcome by debt and the tyranny of human beings. So yeah, this dua, as I said, is in Suheil al-Bukhari. There's another hadith in Sunan Abi Dawood where there's a story around this dua that the Prophet, this longer version, according to many scholars, is weak, still slightly weak, but it says that the Prophet found a man in this masjid at other than the time of Salah, and he asked him, why are you here? It's not time for Salah. And he said, I am overcome by worry, had some problems, including debt. So the Prophet taught this dua to the man, and according to this narration, it says that eventually his problems were resolved. So, of course, this is dua is only one element in a plan of action, and as I promised, I would end off with some other action items. We have to pursue multi-pronged approaches in order to strike the right balance. So dua is important, dhikr is important. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Through remembrance of Allah, the hearts find rest. Also, meditate and count your blessings. If you look at those worse off than yourselves, this will make you more grateful. And research has shown that gratitude can reduce feelings of stress and anxiety, thereby contributing to better mental health. And finally, stay connected to the community, because shaitan, you are more vulnerable to shaitan if you are alone. And related to this, serving others also can help mental health by creating sense of belonging and so on. And there are many hadith about the merit and praiseworthiness of serving others. One hadith, the best of people is khairun nasi anfa'uhum linnas. The best of people is the person who is the most useful to other people. So I will stop there. I think I went slightly over time, so thank you for your patience. And I know Maghrib is already in, but I will hand back to Dr. Faisal, and if it is okay with him, I'm willing to stay for comments, discussion, and questions for 10-15 minutes if need, however long Dr. Faisal sees fit.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Suheil, that was wonderful. That was a wonderful dua and some excellent pointers to end. Yeah, as you point out, Maghrib is in, so I don't know how long people will want to go, but there is a couple of questions in the chat. They wanted the reference for that hadith that you had mentioned earlier.
The hadith containing the dua?
No, the one earlier on that I think you had mentioned in regards to mental health. right after you had mentioned the surah in the Quran. If you just read there, you'll see it.
The verse of the surah, someone already posted that. Hadith reference about solitude. The hadith is narrated by Ahmad, so I'm not sure if it will be on sunnah.com. Let me check. Sunnah.com, I think, does not have the Musnad of Ahmad, but maybe it is in another source as well. Let me just check. Wahda.
Why are you checking that? Okay, I'd like to bring up another kind of hadith and get your perspective on it, because what I had been taught was that this is part of the reason why, for example, in Islam, mental health has not been thought of as a weakness of Iman. And that is the hadith where, it's a hadith Qudsi where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when you found me sick, had you come to visit me, you would have found me there. I.e., regardless of the illness, Allah is with that person. And, the interesting piece of it is that there are pieces to it which say, why did you not feed the hungry? Or why did you not feed me? And he says, how could I have fed you, Allah? You are the supreme. And he says, well, if you had done that, you would have found the reward with me.
Right.
But this was that Allah would be present with the person who was sick.
Yes.
So I just wanted your perspective on that in relation to the fact that in comparison to maybe some other faiths in the past, Islam had never stigmatized mental health, which is part of what you were saying. But I just thought this hadith plays into that and basically says that it is not a weakness of faith, but, an illness like any other illness that someone suffer.
Right. Sorry, you want me to just comment on this?
Yeah, just comment on it, your perspective on that.
Yeah, definitely. As you observed, the hadith says that for the sick, in the case of the sick person, ما علمت أنك لو عدته لوجدتني عنده. Did you not know that if you have visited the sick person, you would have found me there? Whereas for the other scenarios, for the hungry person, did you not know that if you have fed him, you would have found the reward of that with me? But for the sick person, it says that you would have found Allah there. So yes, there is, I think, more than one conclusion we can draw from this, but one possible conclusion is suggested by the hadith, also hadith Qudsi, أنا عند المنكسرة قلوبهم, that Allah is with those whose hearts are broken. So the sick person is vulnerable, he is humbled, and in that sense, he is closer to Allah. And so if you visit the sick person, in that sense, in a manner of speaking, you are closer to Allah also.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
And of course, the sick person receives reward for their suffering, and this applies also to mental illness. So, subhanAllah, if you think about the challenges of someone who is struggling with depression or schizophrenia, and in spite of that, trying to do the right thing. Our own struggles, I think, pale in comparison with that. So yeah, hadith, I found the reference for one hadith. I guess this one is also in Bukhari, but the other one is, it seems, is not in the 6 books. As I said, it is in the Musnad of Ahmad. If you read Arabic, whoever asked that question, I can find the Arabic reference to you. Please email me. You can get my email from Dr. Faisal, and I will send you the Arabic reference.
I don't know if there are any questions at all.
If it is good enough for you, I can paste the Arabic text in the window.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. And while you're doing that, Dr. Suheil, let me ask you one other question. We had mentioned about the issue of the jinns and if they possess someone. This is just a personal kind of thing. Is there a vulnerability that might allow it? Is it totally random? How would it happen?
Yes.
Do you have any kind of maybe wisdom on that you could share?
Yes. So as I said, according to the majority of scholars, black magic and demonic possession are real. There's a minority opinion that this is not real and these do not happen. There's no explicit or clear-cut proof one way or the other from Quran and Hadith, but my personal view is that I'm inclined to believe that this is real, not on the strength of the Quran and Hadith evidence alone, because as I said, this is not conclusive, but when you couple that with empirical evidence, because in virtually every continent and every century in the past, people have had some experiences which, for example, there are reports, and of course you can attack the credibility of these reports, but these things are reported. For example, a boy, this was, I think, in the early to mid 20th century. I forgot the name of the boy, but it was a famous case of exorcism. I think one of the movies, Exorcist or Poltergeist, was based on this story. But a boy in England going into the States where he utters words of ancient Hebrew. But for those who believe that this is real, yes, they often mention things that can make you more vulnerable to this demonic possession. And by the way, if this does happen and the jinn makes you do things against your will, then you are not morally accountable for those things over which you did not have control. But yes, things which can make you more vulnerable, being far away from Allah. So there's for example, there's a Sheikh Muhammad Bali who has written a book about this. He's a Raqi. He has dealt with many of these cases, and he the title of the book is, what is it? Inshallah, it will come to me. You can email me if you want to know the title. But he and others have commented that, for example, person who is not doing his salah regularly is more vulnerable to this than one who is praying regularly. To deliberately remain in state of janaba for a prolonged period can also make you more vulnerable. Not reciting the dua before going into the restroom can also make you more vulnerable. But there are other things which other cases where the person is not religiously negligent, but still he might become vulnerable. For example, in a state of extreme fear. They say that the jinn can kind of take advantage of that to enter the human being. Similarly, when what is it? Either when the person sneezes or yawns or both. So yeah, for all of these things, there's not really hadith that prove this, but this is coming from these people who are specialized in this and coming from their experience.
Okay, the time is getting long. I think we should end here, especially this being the Maghrib time already. So maybe you could end us with your dua, Sheikh Suheil. And I really want to thank you for this very kind of interesting perspective and, giving us this knowledge about a very important topic. As you said, there's so much more to discuss. Inshallah, maybe at some point we would like you to come back and maybe speak to the Sunday school as well about some of these important issues. And we thank you again for gracing us with your knowledge. Jazakallah khair.
Allah accept from all of us. So I will end off with the same dua that I mentioned during the session. And let me just paste the link for those who want to read the dua, those who don't already know it. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sallim. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wa a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal-kasal wa a'udhu bika min al-jubni wal-bukhl wa a'udhu bika min غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. And I did paste the link to one of the versions of the dua. I think the way I recited it is slightly different, but there's leeway for this. I think the version I recited is from Sunan Abi Dawood. This one I posted is from Bukhari.
Okay, once again, thank you so much. I think we will end here given the hour, but Jazakallah khair once again. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.